So I'm Hilary. I'm half of Blackbeak Paranormal with Mallory. We're paranormal investigators. We've only been doing it a year, but before that, I would say I already had a lot of esoteric interests. I grew up with a mother who was a tarot card reader and a spiritualist, so very influenced with that. And I think, in general, I have a really open mind with it. I'm a mom and a wife. I think other than that, I'm pretty basic. I love fashion. I love design. If you put like a magazine in front of me, I'm like flipping through it. So that might be a little embarrassing because I feel like sometimes it's like incongruous with this like community where you're like, did you see New York Fashion Week? What do you think of like Mugler, But other than that, pretty basic. But then I guess weird when people get to know me, it's like you always have to feel it out too. You're like, if I say this, am I going to alienate this person right now, or will it strengthen our friendship? And you never know which way it's going to go.
My name is Hannah. I am 28 years old, and I'm a paranormal investigator. A little about me, I was an anthropology major. I feel like I'm 98 years old instead of 28, and I like long walks on the beach and I take naps. So it's a little about me.
Kate Cherrell. I am a writer, ghost botherer, lecturer and editor from the UK. And I run burialsandbeyond.com, which is a blog about life, death, and the weird things in between. So a lot of very dodgy Victorian mediums and cemeteries, all that good spooky stuff.
I do think it's a little different because I feel like so many people get into paranormal investigating through a death of a loved one. And for me, my mom died when I was 17, and she was always into metaphysical. And I was so like angry and bitter about so much of it that I disconnected myself from that. And it was the birth of my daughter that kind of gave me this, because you have a child and you want to know about your parents. You want to know about you when you were little. And I didn't have anyone to tell me those things because both my parents are passed away. So all of a sudden I became interested in who my mother was as a mom. And I think it's funny too that when you have a child, you see your parents in a completely different way. This, light bulb goes off and you just start understanding who they were and why they did the things that they did. So after I had my daughter, I got back into it. I wanted to, it made me feel close to my mom to, pick up a deck of cards or to go to the gem shop and buy crystals and kind of go to what I was attracted to. And then, funny enough, having my child made me closer to Mallory. Mallory and I always knew each other, but she was a mom and I wasn't. And then we got pregnant at the exact same time. We had our daughters a week from each other. I had Rosie, she had Maya a week after, and it really like bonded us. And Mallory sent me a message and she's like, I'm gonna go to Fort Mifflin. It's a ghost hunt. It's gonna be with the people from Ghost Hunters. And I didn't watch Ghost Hunters. I don't really watch a lot of TV. I'm that weird that I read and I like barely watch any television. So I didn't even know about it because I'm just some like hermit that lives in the house. And she's like, well, I looked for my weirdest friend and you were it. And I just thought it might be something you're like interested in. And I was like, absolutely, I will go. I think that this sounds like a terrific experience because I'm always looking for a unique experience. I love getting things thrown at me that I haven't thought of before. Because I think like every perspective is somewhat, I don't want to say valid because there's a lot of things where I'm like, I don't think so. But I want to hear it because I think it's important to open your mind and to kind of understand where people are coming from. Like compassion doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to agree with somebody, but it's important to like see new things. So I went and we had a paranormal experience. Like there was no doubt about it. And then I was like, okay, like I'm in, I'm hooked. Like, will this happen again? And I want to understand it. And then it kind of like opened up a door, because as much as I've always been into tarot cards and crystals, I've never really done much with paranormal, because I don't want to say I wasn't interested. I think I just kind of didn't understand what the point was, where you're like, well, what are we doing? What are we like trying to accomplish here? And then you get into it and you're like, oh, like there's a lot that people are doing. There's a lot going on here with, taking actual, scientific measurements and trying to use that to validate paranormal experiences.
When I was younger, I was like that weird kid who would watch, what's that show called? Like a Haunting, like back on like old Discovery, and like Courage the Cowardly Dog. And I'd be like, oh my God, I love Goosebumps. And I would just constantly watch those shows. And then I guess kind of spooky things started happening to me that I couldn't explain. I still can't. When I was probably like 4 or 5, we lived in an apartment complex in West Virginia. And every night I would see this strange shadow figure smiling at me in my room. Yeah, I know. And every night I would like run to my parents' room and they'd be like, Hannah, you're just dreaming. I'm like, no, I'm not. And I would like turn around and there he is, like smiling at me from the door. And that happened every day we lived there for about 4 months. And then after that, things kind of like escalated. Like my grandma passed away and I would smell her perfume. I guess the biggest one was I was driving to my friend's house and I was turning left and the light turned green and I went to go and I heard this voice yell in my ear, don't go. And I was like, what? And just then an 18-wheeler ran the light, hit the guy in front of me. And I realized at the end it was my grandma's voice. So things like that kind of escalated. There's a lot more stuff, like my cousin's house was haunted. I heard disembodied voices say my name. And after all of that, I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of these ghosts like sneaking up. Well, besides my grandma, I'm tired of these ghosts sneaking up on me. I'm going to find them instead. So about 2 years ago, I was like, let me buy some equipment. Let me get serious about this. And I did some investigating. And then last year I met my best friend Ivy and we've been doing spooky stuff together. And that's where I came today.
My origin story is very very book based, which seems very fitting. My interest really came initially from my granddad. My granddad was a very forthright, very old school, working class British guy, from a very, very working class fishing town. And his little unusual thing about him was that he was utterly obsessed with the paranormal and UFOs. So my first books that we shared together when I was on his knee was the Paranormal Encyclopedia, where I'd look at the pictures, ensure I wouldn't sleep for the next week. And then next week, we'd keep repeating it with, today we're doing Roswell, tell the toddler about, these hideous alien corpses. And then that sort of started an interest, and I started watching more like kid-friendly ghosty things and kept reading. And then I had my own paranormal experience when I was a young teen. And that ironically kind of put me back a bit. It scared me a bit much, and it wasn't so much of a fun, here's a ghost at a bus stop story anymore. It was more, oh, there could be something in this. And then as I got older and I got into academia, I started realizing that there was this whole amazing world of paranormal research, of historic paranormal research. And then as soon as I found Victorian mediumship and old parapsychology journals, it just became a rabbit warren. And then I've become so immersed in it now that every day is ghost day. Every day is finding out something new and kind of getting more and more intertwined with all these different fields and different belief systems. But yeah, all sprung from a little spooky experience and a whole lot of questionable paranormal encyclopedias as a kid. Yeah.
I kept seeing a lot, and I felt like you ever see something and you're like, I think it's calling to me. But I was a little bit uncomfortable with it because as much as I'll read cards like my mom, I think of them in a completely different way. And I think that's the fun thing about cards is they're whatever you want them to be. You can make up your own spread, and based on what you're trying to get out of it, that's what you're going to get out of it. So if you read cards in a completely kind of meditative way, they're meditative. The cards have duality to them. You get a bad card, but there's always something good about that. There's a new perspective. Maybe not always. I think sometimes you get a card and you're like, oh no, like, but it makes you deal with things too. I've always loved with the cards that you'll get it and it forces you to face something. And you know, I'm not saying that the cards have this kind of supernatural magic to them, but that's the beauty of it, is that they don't have to. They can be completely you and your subconscious kind of recognizing each other and reconciling like things with one another. But I thought it might be fun to kind of take the opportunity to give my mom a voice when, you know, it's so funny because when I was younger, you couldn't talk about stuff like this. Like, we moved a lot, but when we got into a new community, it was almost like a white Christian community. And if you mentioned anything, everybody just labeled you as, you know, satanic. And it has nothing to do with that. So my mom is, as much as she would do parties and go to these shops within our own towns and communities, nobody knew. She was very quiet. She was very kind of drawn into herself because she understood the stigma that having these interests could like bring on us and us going to school with these other kids. So it was nice to have an opportunity to like talk about her and talk about how she read cards and why she would read cards a certain way. And then also how, you know, me now approaches cards, and it's no longer really taboo. And I feel like it's from women just being like, you accept me how I am or you don't accept me. I don't really care anymore. Like, so that's kind of what I feel like my piece was. It was like me being able to talk about someone who no longer has a voice, and when they were alive, they couldn't, and then just my take on it. So it was refreshing, but then it was also extremely vulnerable because I'm like, oh no, it's out there. Like, everyone knows.
So for volume 2, I wrote about an investigation I did, I think it was last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember, but that one was one of my favorites, actually. I was Googling places, where is a haunted place I can go that's near me? And it pops up this inn and spa called the Marth Inn. And I was like, you know what? A haunted inn and a spa? I have to go. I have to go. So I drove 6 hours. I went there. I stayed 2 nights. I did a lot of research on this place. And I ended up learning a lot from the hotel. When I checked in, I was kind of weird. I hope I didn't come off as weird. I was like, hi, I've heard this hotel is haunted. Can you tell me anything? And they gave me this brochure. And it was just like all of the paranormal stuff that was supposed to happen in there. And I guess like the biggest one I can tease, a girl named Beth. So the Martha Inn started as a house for these really rich people back in the day. Then it turned into a girls' school, and then it turned to a hospital during the Civil War. And then I think became an inn maybe in the I forget when, but for 150 years it was like it's been preserved and, you know, all that jazz. So Beth was a student at the Martha when it was a school, and when the Civil War happened, they would bring soldiers in, and the girls at the school, it was an all-girls school, they turned into nurses and they would take care of the soldiers. So Beth was known for being a good violin player, and she fell in love with one of the wounded soldiers. And before he passed away, he wanted her to play violin, and she did. And then he passed away, and then she passed away from disease. And apparently to this day, you can hear Beth playing violin throughout the Martha. So that's like the biggest paranormal tale from there. And I stayed there for 2 nights, and I tried getting a haunted room, but they cost a little more because, you know, they got to play it up. And nothing really spooky happened to me. So I was like, okay, I need to get something. Like, I only have 2 nights here. The first receptionist I asked for the brochure, she didn't really tell me much, but the second receptionist in a bellhop, we talked for hours about all of their experiences, people who work there's experiences. They even gave me this journal and all these newspaper clippings that the hotel kept of all the spooky stuff that's happened. And I was just sitting in the library, which is very pretty, by the way. The whole place is pretty. And I was just flipping through, reading, and at night they gave you wine. So I'm sipping my wine, like reading, I know, like reading all this by the fireplace. It was very like perfect. So I wrote about all of that, all of the paranormal happenings that happened there from my interviews, and then my experiences at the hotel. Nothing, I mean, maybe 1 or 2 things happened, but you can read that in the article. But essentially, the Martha, a haunted and historic Virginia inn and spa. So that was a little tease of what I wrote.
My piece is very close to home in all senses of the word. I have written a piece about a so-called demon church, and I explore the history of this church. Why is it called a demon church? Certainly doesn't look very demonic, but how has one church in a county that is filled, absolutely filled with redundant churches, why is this one had so much unusual folklore, really severe paranormal sightings, paranormal reports kind of happen around it? Where did this come from? Is it this, amazing Wicker Man style history that's been there from the off, or is it a far more recent thing? And how does Hollywood play into this? So I kind of explore the history of the demon church, what led us to there, and what's the future of it, and really what are people doing right and what are people doing wrong with trying to preserve it. It's very, very, it's much like everything. It's a rabbit warren when you get into it, but nothing is as simple as a spooky church. There is a whole lot more to it. So that's kind of my teaser.
So just starting out, I would advise, in general, don't blow your money on equipment, because I don't know, can we really prove it even works? We can't. Get a flashlight, get a digital recorder, get a camera, enjoy yourself. And then the second thing, don't let anyone intimidate you doing this. I know, like, when you see ghost hunters, it's usually dudes, like, on TV and everything. Like, don't let that intimidate you. Like, there's a lot of women out there. We're doing it. We're here. And we're not like, scared, and just have fun with it. It's not a competition. I know a lot of stuff, sometimes you feel kind of like that FOMO, like missing out, and like, why can't I have followers like that? Or why can't I do that? It's all fun. You'll get there. And there's no reason to compare yourself. So don't blow your money. Don't be intimidated, and you'll get there.
I mean, it's kind of like obvious, but also funny to say my mom, because she's influenced me so much to be the person that I am today, and raised with this open mind, and that's allowed me to kind of understand so much about myself and to always be like reading and curious. And that's my husband and I always say with our daughter, like, our most important lesson to her is just intellectual curiosity. Like, never stop wanting to know things, never feel like you're done, always try and like find out why that happened or what's going on. And like, when it comes to the paranormal, you're probably never going to have a good answer, but that's what makes it all the more interesting and fun, is to go down that rabbit hole. And then like, it's just phenomenal to me, like, how far I've come from just last year going into this to like now, and how much like more fulfilled I feel as a person, because it's so easy to say you don't care or it doesn't matter to you. But I didn't realize how much I was like cutting off a limb for myself, being like, this isn't important to me because I wasn't spiritual at all. I was, I had decided that the best way to go through life is to go through it very pragmatic and logical and very like, this is it. And that wasn't the right answer too. It's about balance. Like, I couldn't be exactly like my mom and just kind of live in it constantly. I needed a balance where like I honored that part of myself and I honored what that was, but I also lived in the real world, and I, was a responsible person that like did what I needed to do every day. So I think, I appreciate so much more now who she was and what she had to teach me. And I wish she was here today, because I feel like she has so much to offer to this community that's, I felt, gotten so strong in the past 20 years. And I'm like, wow, like, you would have been awesome doing this stuff. But that's why I'm here. I guess I can kind of, fill that role.
think it's a strangely powerful position to be in. I very much enjoy being a woman in this field because I see, because it's historically been a very male-dominated field, I'm kind of optimistically see the world of the paranormal as a bit of a blank canvas for women. And although technically I suppose we count as marginalized voices, I think that the opportunities that we can forge for ourselves and create through projects like this is a really amazing, it's a really amazing field of opportunities. And so although I think it might be hard to be taken seriously because not all of us have beards, although some of us have the ability to grow them, but that's nature. I think that, yeah, it's an amazing journey for women. And I'm so excited when I see more and more women band together and make, you know, female investigative groups or, you know, female-led projects. I think it's like a subculture within a wider culture that's really beginning to thrive. And I think that we're in a very exciting position as women. And I think more and more opportunities are opening up, and those opportunities we're generally creating ourselves. So I think it's a great place to be.
I think just mine and Mallory's Instagram, the Blackbeak Paranormal. I'd say just Blackbeak Paranormal. Stay tuned. We'll see what we can come up with.
My personal is Spooky Abu, like Abu. And the project that I'm working on, I mentioned my best friend Ivy. We have a paranormal group called Ghouls Trip, repping the shirt. So Ghouls Trip is a girls' trip for the paranormal. Ivy and myself, we write about spooky places all over America, and we're planning on going to these places. We've both been to a few. We've done in like our home states a lot. We've branched out, and we write about the history, haunted history, and investigation. What we found, is it even haunted? And we like to debunk things as well. Like we'll take a picture and someone will be like, ah, it's an orb, but it's a piece of dust. Like we like to go in and debunk things as well. And then we write like little tips, like if you're going to visit, like, hey, this is the ticket price. These are rules about the place, so on and so forth. So we have a blog, but we're mostly active on that, Instagram as well. We have a Twitter and a Facebook, and a YouTube channel, because we kind of also branch out and do other things. Like we've bought haunted dolls, and we've done like a haunted doll group project with a few other investigators, buying different haunted objects. And now we're coming out with maybe a new like weekly segment between the two of us, some spooky stories and pink drinks, because, you know, pinky drinkies do be delicious. And yeah, so the main projects are just Ghouls Trip, and then also my personal spooky abuse. But most of the stuff, if you want to see my spooky stuff and IVs, go check out Ghouls Trip blog.
Burialsandbeyond.com is updated weekly with fun and engaging blog posts. It's not super dry academia. There's a lot of stuff in there, but it's stuff that you can enjoy on your lunch break, on the toilet, whatever you're doing. It's fully accessible. It's a lot of fun. All my socials, I've got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all as Burials and Beyond. And my baby, my little creature, my goblin, is my Patreon, and I update my Patreon 4 times a week. Kate, it's too much. You're right, it's too much. I'm exhausted. But my Patreon is my absolute baby. I put on brand new researched articles every week, cemetery guides, hauntings, there's podcasts every week, videos every week. It's dirt cheap. It's like £1 or $1 to sign up a month, full access to everything. I call it my clubhouse, and it's my little world. So come and join my world. Yeah, cheap as chips. It's fun, and I talk about ghosts and dead things. I mean, come on, that's everyone's interest group. So come and be my friend.